It was supposed to be just another routine flight. A Boeing 787 Dreamliner lifting off from Ahmedabad, clear skies, experienced pilots, modern aircraft systems. Nothing could possibly go wrong. And yet, in less than 30 seconds, the skies turned red, the earth shook, and more than 270 souls vanished in an inferno that no one saw coming. Among the smoldering wreckage, hidden beneath twisted metal and shattered dreams, investigators have now uncovered something that changes everything we thought we knew about aviation safety. It's not just about one engine or one airline. What scientists have found inside the wreckage of Air India Flight 171 has sent shockwaves through Boeing, rippled through the aviation industry, and sparked a chilling question. What if our most advanced aircraft are not as safe as we were told? Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why what they discovered inside that plane may be the most terrifying clue yet in the future of global aviation. Air India Flight 171 wasn't just any plane. It was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, an aircraft marketed for over a decade as one of the safest, most technologically advanced commercial planes ever built. Its carbon fiber fuselage, advanced avionics, and dual General Electric GNX engines were designed to withstand nearly any conceivable in-flight emergency. So how could this ultra-modern marvel fall from the sky just 30 seconds after takeoff, crashing into the BJ Medical College hostel and leaving a fiery trail of destruction that claimed the lives of 279 people? The questions began piling up even before the smoke cleared. How could a plane barely 625 feet above the ground stall so catastrophically? How could the pilots, both seasoned professionals, fail to save the aircraft despite issuing a mayday call? And what does it mean that the only survivor, Vishwashkumar Romesh, leaped from the plane just moments before the impact? The answers, as investigators soon found, were buried beneath the charred wreckage and scorched asphalt, and they were far more disturbing than anyone expected. When the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder were recovered, nearly 28 hours after the crash, investigators finally got a glimpse of those final moments. The cockpit was calm at first, the crew going through standard takeoff procedures. But then, a sudden engine anomaly, a drop in thrust, and a rapid pitch change. One of the pilots shouted something about flaps being misaligned, then silence. The Mayday transmission was abruptly cut off, almost as if the aircraft systems themselves failed in that exact moment. But the real shock came from a third device recovered, an experimental camera that recorded both internal and external footage of the cabin and cockpit. What it revealed was unprecedented. Seconds before the crash, the instruments on the flight deck began glitching, flickering screens, inaccurate altitude readings, and a lag in flight control response. One investigator, speaking off record, called it a total systems meltdown. But what caused this chain reaction? A bird strike? A mechanical fault? Or something deeper? Something embedded within the very software that controls the Dreamliner's advanced fly-by-wire systems. It didn't take long before investigators started questioning the very foundation of the Boeing 787's design. The Dreamliner had long been under scrutiny, plagued by battery fires in its early years, delivery delays, and more recently, whistleblower allegations. One former Boeing engineer had warned in 2024 that the company had cut corners in structural joints to speed up production. Boeing denied it, but now those accusations have returned with new weight. The Air India 171 wreckage showed unusual fuselage joint damage inconsistent with a typical crash. Could these structural weaknesses have amplified the impact? Or worse, could they have contributed to the initial failure? Meanwhile, attention turned toward the Dreamliner's software. A 2023 report flagged rare but catastrophic bugs in the aircraft's fly-by-wire system, including one that could cause unexpected nose-up pitches during high-stress maneuvers. Boeing issued a patch, but it's unclear whether it was ever installed on the doomed aircraft. With Air India's maintenance already under pressure, short-staffed teams, rushed checks, and a 15% shortage in licensed technicians, could this have been a fatal oversight? The convergence of possible software failure, maintenance gaps, and structural vulnerabilities now paints a terrifying picture. This may not have been a one-time accident. It might be the symptom of a systemic breakdown in aviation safety. As news of the crash spread, so did the fear. Boeing stock plummeted nearly 9%, insurance companies braced for record payouts, and Air India slashed wide-body operations by 15%. But the panic wasn't limited to India. Airlines around the world began reviewing their 787 fleets. Some grounded them temporarily. Passengers canceled flights. Pilots demanded mental health screenings and more transparent maintenance logs. In India, vigils were held for the lost. In Canada, the UK, and Australia, legal teams prepared wrongful death lawsuits under the Montreal Convention. And in the skies, an uncomfortable silence settled in, a silence broken only by the growing sound of doubt. And then came the public revelations, reports of faulty systems from the same aircraft just 2 hours earlier, broken screens, failing air conditioning, and a chilling statistic. Ahmedabad's airport had reported 462 bird strikes in just 5 years. One theory gained traction, that a bird had been sucked into the engine during takeoff, crippling it. But that still didn't explain the software anomalies, the structural damage, or the overwhelming failure of multiple systems at once. With every layer of the investigation, the mystery deepened. What really went wrong inside Flight 171? Was it just an accident, or something no one was ready to face? As the investigation deepened, a specialized team of aerospace engineers and material science experts was brought in to examine the fuselage remains of Air India 171. What they discovered was both technically baffling and deeply alarming. In several key structural areas, particularly along the wing attachment points and the rear bulkhead, they detected signs of advanced metal fatigue. But the most disturbing part wasn't just the presence of the damage, it was the timeline. After reconstructing stress simulations and cross-analyzing flight data using artificial intelligence, it was revealed that microfractures had begun forming long before the plane even took off. This suggested that the aircraft had been flying for months or even years with critically weakened structural points. The implications were massive. How could such damage go unnoticed in an aircraft subject to routine safety checks? And more chillingly, how many other planes could be flying right now with the exact same invisible cracks forming silently under the surface? While combing through the aircraft's final data transmissions, a communications analyst recovered a corrupted ACARS message, one that had been partially transmitted just seconds before the final descent. After carefully reconstructing the packet, what emerged was something no one at Boeing recognized: an error code labeled 783 Zulu, linked to a malfunction in the aircraft's backup elevator control system. This subsystem is critical. It governs vertical control of the plane and is meant to function even if the primary system fails. Yet no documentation existed for 783 Zulu. It wasn't listed in any official Boeing database. The only clue came from an internal reference suggesting the code belonged to a prototype failsafe system that had never been publicly disclosed or officially certified. This raised a terrifying question. Was Air India 171 flying with experimental software that no one had authorized? If so, it wouldn't just be a safety oversight. It would be a breach of global aviation protocol and a catastrophic failure of communication between Boeing, regulators, and airlines. Just as speculation began spiraling, a confidential report, anonymously sent to investigative journalists and global aviation watchdogs, surfaced. The leaked file, dated early 2025, appeared to originate from a former senior systems engineer at Boeing. It contained internal memos, flagged error logs, and a chilling internal message chain. In one message, a software lead admits, "We're under pressure to deliver Dreamliners on schedule, even if that means skipping redundancy simulations on low-risk subsystems." Another internal audit, buried in the appendix, revealed discrepancies in software versions across aircraft supposedly running the same flight control software. That meant no two planes were flying with identical systems, undermining the very standardization that commercial aviation depends on. The whistleblower's final note read simply, "Air India 171 wasn't an anomaly. It was a preview." The implication was devastating. Not only was this crash predictable, it was part of a much larger pattern Boeing had failed to address for years. Within 48 hours of the report's leak, Boeing's stock suffered its worst decline in nearly a decade, losing more than $25 billion in market value. Airlines around the world began grounding their Dreamliner fleets. Emirates, Lufthansa, American Airlines, and Singapore Airlines all announced immediate technical audits of their 787 systems. Aviation regulators scrambled to convene emergency sessions, with the FAA and ESA launching a joint task force to reevaluate the Dreamliner's entire certification process. Meanwhile, social media exploded with first-hand accounts from passengers who had flown on these aircraft and now wondered if they too had been flying in ticking time bombs. But amid the panic, a far more unsettling reality started to settle in. If Air India 171 was the first to go down, it might not be the last. Because what was found inside that plane wasn't just debris or data, it was a crack in the very foundation of trust that holds the global aviation industry together. What began as a tragic aviation accident has now unraveled into one of the most unsettling discoveries in modern aeronautical history. Air India 171 was not just a flight. It was a mirror held up to an entire industry, revealing systemic cracks that go far deeper than any fuselage could show. From the hidden transmission error to the unidentified prototype system, and from the whistleblower's revelations to the global market's swift reaction, we're no longer dealing with an isolated tragedy. We're confronting a pattern of oversight, pressure, and perhaps even silence from within the very institutions meant to protect us. And as Boeing scrambles to contain the fallout, one terrifying truth remains. We may never know just how many planes are still flying with the same silent errors coded deep inside their systems, waiting. But what we do know, now more than ever, is that trust in aviation must be earned, not assumed. Because next time, the warning might not come from a crash. It might come too late. If you made it this far, consider subscribing for more investigations like this one, because the truth is often hidden in the debris, waiting for someone to uncover it.